everyone. Welcome back to Keto and Crime. And finally, after a long delay due to COVID and holidays and flooding cars and everything else, we are back with my good buddies, Brentley from Dangerous Rhetoric and Brian from the Front Porch Conservative, finally taking on the final Purge movie, the Forever Purge. And I know you know these guys, but I won't have them introduce themselves anyway. Brentley, tell the people a little bit about yourself.
My name is Brentley. I have a little podcast called Dangerous Rhetoric where we host spicy conversations that the establishment does not want you to hear. We do live streams on Rumble Sunday evening. I have little 60-second news blips that I do on Instagram and TikTok, and I'm very active on X. So you can find me at 𝗂𝗂𝘂𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂𝗂 𝗥𝗲𝗹𝗃 is hard to spell.
And Brian?
My name is Brian Trippett. I am known in social media as the Front Porch Conservative. I've got channels on YouTube and Rumble, and I'm also on Twitter at the Front Porch C1. My specialties, if I have any, happen to do with politics, history, and current events. I've had the pleasure of being on Brent's Dangerous Rhetoric podcast Sunday Night Roundtable, which is a load of fun. If you have not seen it yet, I highly recommend it to you. And this lovely lady has had me on her channel a time or two for these movie reviews, and it's always a pleasure to hang out with these two. So please, if you're not subscribed to our channels, please give us a sub. We are going little concerns. We'd like to be going big concerns if it's altogether possible. So there you go.
Absolutely. I cannot recommend these two channels highly enough. I mean, they are excellent, especially if you like a walk on the wild side when it comes to politics and current events. And so
Brent, we've made it to the wild side.
Hey, I call myself Dangerous Rhetoric for a reason. You can find that on YouTube, Spotify, and Rumble.
But we are here to talk about the Forever Purge, and came out in 2021, written by James DeMonaco and directed by 𝗟𝗲𝗽𝗀𝗃. He is a Mexican filmmaker that James DeMonaco tapped to helm the final installment of the Purge franchise for reasons. Basically, since this Purge centers around the Texas border, which is quite topical for today, even though it was made in 2021, he wanted a Mexican's viewpoint, and he didn't feel that he could do that, so he tapped the director to direct this. And the fact that James DeMonaco, in my opinion, that James DeMonaco did not direct it really shows, but he did write it. And so basically it's 8 years after Charlie Rowan's election in election year, and somehow the new founding fathers have came back into power, reinstated the Purge, and we find ourselves on the Texas border from the viewpoint of both Texas citizens and migrants, both undocumented and documented. So, and what happens on Purge night. And it is quite an event. And with that being said, I'll kick it over to Brentley. What are your first thoughts?
Well, I think the first thing is that it opens up with, two illegals crossing the border. So immediately, my first thought was, okay, these are our protagonists. Like, we're going to be following their story. And that's basically what ends up happening. And one of the things that I thought was really funny was that there was this trope where, like, very early on when we're meeting the characters, the young man Juan does this thing where, like, he like calms a horse. And I was like, this is just such a, like, it's almost like a cliche. Like, he's like, it's like the magical minority person, like, has this like some sort of knowing to just like calm them. Like, and it just tells us that the audience that, okay, this guy's like in tune with animals, like, he's a good guy. Like in stories, when you see somebody like calming an animal or interacting positively with animals, it's because the person who writes the story wants you to like that person. So to me, it just felt kind of like cheap and quick. And so that is like just the very first, like right off the bat, this is going to be about immigration, and as you said, it was making in 2021, immigration was still a very hot topic, all through the Trump presidency. Trump was separating illegals at the border, the headline, Trump detains families. I can't remember how many times families were being detained at the border. And it was like, that's like 6 dudes and a toddler that was drugged. Like, come on. But this stuff just like blows my mind. And so it seems to be like the 𝗂𝗂𝘀𝗶𝗰 is doing a little apologia here. He's trying to, very sort of left-wing perspective, very pro-immigrant, very, hardworking, very just trying to be here, just trying to survive. So he's doing this sort of like, I don't know, it comes across as very forced, is what I'm saying.
And for those of you that maybe not seen my channel, I am not anti-immigration. I am anti-illegal immigration. I'll just say it straight out. If someone needs asylum, there should be a legal process that they go through to be documented. We know exactly where they are. We understand whether or not they have a criminal record. And that's all I'll say on the matter. So I don't want anybody to think that I'm anti-immigration. I am not. I'm anti-illegal immigration. There is a difference. But this, as you said, this movie was very much pro-immigration in all forms. But I did grow to like the two protagonists quite a bit. Adela, his wife, was awesome. And then there's another undocumented immigrant also working on the same ranch whose name is 𝗬𝗄 that I just absolutely adored. And so, they did kind of grow on me a little bit. The characters were good. Brian, what were your first thoughts?
Well, as far as a 𝗂𝗂𝘀𝗀𝗀 film is concerned, it's got all the hallmarks of what makes these Purge films so good. A very solid cast. When I saw that Will Patton and Josh Lucas were in this thing, I went, "Ooh, yeah, these are two of my favorite guys." Will Patton is one of those great character actors that can just chew up scenery. You give him the room to run, and he is all over the place. And it's not that he's overtly over the top, outlandish. It's just that quiet, understated solidness that goes along with any and all the characters that he's played over the years. And Josh Lucas normally is a traditional leading man, and there's certain leading man qualities to his performance, but it's understated as to what you would usually see him be. It's almost like he's taking on a supporting role in this, which is, I mean, he's fine. He's quite capable of doing it. As with the other Purge films, I thought that the female actresses in this were great. Ana de la Reguera, who plays Adela, is fantastic. Cassidy Freeman, who plays Josh Lucas's wife in the film, is really good. The sister, Liv-Ann Ramblin, who plays Harper, another strong female character. I'm like you, Alejandro Eda, who played 𝗬𝗬𝘁, he's great. And I wish that Patton and Alejandro Eda would have had more screen time. And we can get to why it is Will Patton's character is not in the film for a long time. The story, I thought, was a real interesting twist, because normally with the Purge movies, the whole film consists of that 12-hour Purge period stretched out, or maybe better say condensed, into like an hour-and-a-half film. This one gives you a twist in that, well, the Purge ends very early in the movie, and you're like, well, we're not even through eating the popcorn yet, and you're already done. What's going on? And that is one of the things I think that makes this one really.
We get to see the day after a Purge. What does it look like? And just the fact that they're hosing blood off of walls and off of roads, and that very delicious shot, and I say that ironically, of the dog licking the dead body in the front yard. I'm like,
well, I thought it was a coyote personally. I thought
it was a wolf or something.
Yeah, eating the corpse. I thought, now that's pretty. Yeah, that was an amazing scene.
And that's the other thing that I think about this movie that kind of is different, is that, in previous Purge movies, one of my big problems was credulity, and that I have a hard time believing that once, like society crosses a line like that and there's so much mass chaos, you can't just like call time at the siren and have people go back to being normal. Like, I always found that like very difficult to believe. So here we're like, finally, the last one, we see what happens when people don't stop the killing. I actually found it, like, in a way much more believable, because I just, the kind of people, when you see the previous, all the previous Purge movies, the people that come out, like the psychopaths dropping their masks, it doesn't seem like, you know, that would stop. And then here it doesn't stop. And that one scene where like you really get that impression where she's like, what's with this goat in the trap? Like, and she goes to starts putzing with it, and then she's the one in the trap.
In the
Like,
trap. And then
that was a good little
two creepy
reversal.
bunnies, the two creepy
Mhm.
bunnies come out. And it kind of hones in because they are in this country illegally. They're working with either temporary work visas or forged documents. We really don't know, but Juan and
Right.
TT work on the ranch that's owned by the Tucker family, and Adela works at a bakery. And she's a great worker. She's her boss's favorite. And after the purge, it kind of shows the difference between like rich and poor. The Tuckers on purge night,
Yeah.
they hunker down in their house behind security system and all of that, and all the migrant workers, they all hole up together, which I think would be the best philosophy on purge. As Brentley has said many times, they all hunker down in one location. They have food, they have entertainment, they have people with guns posted outside, and they ride it out that way. And then it's over, and you wonder, this is different. And then people just keep on killing. And then the new founding fathers have lost control of the purge, and the purge is spreading. And so then it becomes a fight for survival. And ironically, it's the white ranch hands that work for the Tuckers that come back to kill them. It's not the two illegal immigrants, it's the white cowboys that work for the Tuckers that come back to get revenge for the fact they don't own the ranch. Basically, is what it is.
Kirk, what was his name? That character?
Kirk.
Kirk was
Yeah.
very pretty. Like, he was a very handsome young man. It's a shame he turned out to be such an a-hole.
I know.
Well, don't worry, he got his in the end. I mean, you know, it all kind
Well,
of
he ended up
balances out.
shot and dead, you know, but spoiler alert.
Well, since we're talking about eye candy, I don't know what nicknames 𝗂𝗂𝘁𝗿𝗂 has, the lady who played Adela, but I'm forever going to call her the tank top queen. That one scene where she's in like that burgundy colored tank top, and I'm like, oh honey, you can just keep on walking around in that thing and those jeans all day long. Don't let me stop you. Please be my guest.
She was
Go
quite
right
sexy
ahead.
in that. She was quite sexy.
She
in
had
that.
very good trigger discipline too. In the one scene
Mhm.
where she was going up during purge night, you know, she was just watching. She goes up to the
Mhm.
roof for some air, and she picks up a gun as these three bogeys come by, which are like, you know, these forever purgers that are like. And the thing about the forever purgers too is that you find out really like right off the bat, it's like the white supremacist threat that the Democrats wish we had in this country that does not exist here. It's like very real in the purge films, and they're organized, they're funded, they have strong ideologies. They say they go around in their purge night and they're like, we will defend the United States. Hold on, what I wrote it down. From foreigners raping and pillaging the United States. We will, like, you know, cleanse the infection. We will disinfect you, like this kind of stuff. And I was like, this isn't real. Like,
well, and another element that, in that same vein, and it also goes along with one of the hallmarks of a Demonico film, is the redemption arc. Because you've got Josh Lucas's character Dylan, who you can tell he does not like people who are from Mexico.
right.
And he's not even subtle about it, to the point that, you know, Will Patton's character, the father, has to go to Juan and say, look, my son's being over the top. He's riding you too hard about this. I'm sorry, you know, but he's not really that way. He's just got a lot on his mind. And as the film goes on, you see Josh Lucas's character come to realize, man, this isn't about the color of your skin. It's about who's got my back and who's got my wife back, you know.
Exactly.
So
And that basically what it boils down to. They kill Will Patton's character. Shoot him in the head, and then of course TT and Juan kill the bad guys and rescue the rest of the family. What happened? Was the mom killed? Was the grandma killed?
The
I don't
mom
remember.
was
She just
never
sort of
in the
disappeared.
film.
She wasn't. Okay, I just
Yeah,
wondered,
she
did
was
I
never in
miss
the
her?
film. You saw the dad in Will Patton, and you saw the kids, Josh Lucas's character and live on
Harper.
I don't think there was mom.
Yeah, there wasn't a mom. But
okay, that's good, because I wondered, did they kill his wife too? I must have.
You know, it was just him, because and I like how he basically told, you know, Kurt to GFY. It was very, very potently delivered. And
and I love how he just said, look, the rich have always subjugated the poor from the beginning of time until the end of time. That's just the way it is, son. We're all trapped in the system. Get over it.
Yep.
And I'm like, go, Will Patton.
Well, and see that's one of those examples of a great soliloquy delivered by Patton. This is what he does with almost every character he's ever played over the years. You give him just a little bit of room, and my God, what he can do with it. He's just a very gifted actor.
And it's basically saying that no matter if you kill me, there's just going to be another rich man that comes in. And what happened after the French Revolution? They got Robespierre and the Reign of Terror. And then after they vanquished Robespierre, who'd they get? Napoleon. You cut off the head of the snake, it just comes right back. And so you just have to learn to make the best of things.
That's why you need cultural evolution, not revolution. Yeah.
Exactly. And so then you have the remaining members of the Tucker family, and TT and One. One wants to go find Adela, his wife. So they all jump into this 18-wheeler that's just parked on their property.
Just there.
He just happens to be there.
Quick,
because every ranch has an 18-wheeler, don't you know? Yeah. You know.
Exactly. Without a trailer. And they all jump into it and they take off going to town to try to find Adela. Meanwhile, Adela has been trapped by the cage by the rabbit people, and her boss Darius, who was played by
Sammy Rotby,
who is from Django Unchained. That's where he was, where I remember him from.
That's where I've seen him before. Okay.
Yeah.
Because I knew I recognized him. I was like, where do I recognize him from?
Yeah. And so he's the owner of the bakery, and he comes out and he rescues Adela. He kills all those rabbit people in short order. And then he wants to go off, and then you see the news reports of people saying this is the forever purge. We're just revolution. We're going to take our country away from whatever mythical beast is holding the country. And then
then the cops arrest them.
Cops arrest them and
think that they're purging when actually they just killed the people that were trying to purge them.
To kill them. And so they're in the back of this paddy wagon, basically with a white supremacist who's saying all these nasty things to Adela.
Actual purgers.
And then they get attacked, they wreck, they flip, and then basically Darius kills the white supremacists. They get out, and then Darius just disappears from the movie. He goes off to find his family. Right. I would love to have seen what happened to him. I wish they kept him.
It's just like, and exit the black man now.
Exactly.
Like, what?
He was cool.
He was cool. Yeah, I liked him. He was a good character.
Yeah. And so they're all together, and a little romance is developing between TT and Harper, which I was just wanting them to kiss the entire movie.
Yeah, that was cool. That was really good.
That little scene in the convenience store where he has the jelly and she has the peanut butter, and
he gives her like a little hat tip, and they like fall asleep together at one point, and they're cuddling.
Yeah. And so they're basically making a run for the Mexican border because the news has reported that both Canada and Mexico will open up their border for the next 6 hours.
But only for 6 hours.
And let everybody in that's unarmed out of the United States and give them sanctuary. And see, DeMonico, even though he's so pro United States should take everybody, he kind of told off on himself right there. Even in his movie, there's a limit to how much Mexico and Canada will take.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And specifications around it. So.
Yeah, and it's as they're making that run for the border, and there's a couple of new characters that are introduced, when our would-be border crossers are trying to get through El Paso. And from my perspective, I wish these two characters would have somehow been woven into the story earlier. Mm-hmm. Elijah and Mother Hardin.
Wasn't Elijah the one that was on the TV before? He was showing up as like a talk show. Is he's the Native American dude?
No. Yeah. That's Zahn McClarnon, who plays Chiago.
That's what I'm thinking of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, but the lady that was leading them to look for the red roses as to how to get to the border. Yeah, she was cool. And then you see Adela just go all ape shit on people and shoot the hell out of people, fight the hell out of people, and comes to find out the reason her and one fled to the United States is that a cartel had a hit out on them because they had taken out some cartel members to protect their village.
Yeah, she was like
And
part of an anti-cartel squad
hell,
or something,
yeah,
which is why she knows how to fight and can use
Mm.
guns and stuff.
right.
And you're like, oh,
That's why they're here.
right.
Mm.
And then there's the 2.5 minute battle run scene through an alley where absolutely nothing happens.
It was so annoying. I was
Yeah.
like, and so actually, one of my major complaints about the film is that a lot of the scenes drag on necessarily. Like they just go
Right.
on way longer than they need to. You're spending extra minutes watching people fight or whatever. And then it comes this scene where I'm like, they're literally just like running through an alley for like 2 minutes, 3 minutes. I'm like, what am I watching
Well,
at this point?
the movie theater scene where Adela and Cassidy are working their way through it. They're in, I mean, in screen time, it's like 2 or 3, 4 minutes of this thing, and I'm like, why?
And they kill two
Why?
purgers, and that's it.
Yeah,
They,
that's it. Exactly.
and
So
then
yeah,
and at the
Go ahead.
end of that damn long scene is where they kill TT. Spoiler alert.
Right.
And I'm just like, why? Why?
that broke my heart.
I know.
Unnecessary. They could have just maimed him. He could have lost an eye or a hand, or a leg, I guess, maybe.
Or shot in the shoulder or broken
Yeah.
arm or something like that, and he's still, traveling with them, and you could still develop the relationship that was happening between he and Harper, and it just, but like I said, the two villains that I thought were extremely interesting in that alley scene were like Elijah Harden and Mother Harden, his wife. Those now by Purge villain standards, these two are pretty good.
Yeah.
I just wish they would have worked them in earlier, or found a way to work them in earlier, because they are both getting off some lines in that speech in the alley, and I'm like, oh, these are some badasses.
I
love
wish
these
they
two.
had ran into them before they ever got to El
Yes,
Paso.
absolutely.
And El Paso's a war zone, everyone, because you've got the purgers, you've got people trying to make it to the border, and you've got the army that are trying to restore peace, and nobody's winning and nobody's losing. It's just mayhem.
Yeah,
Well,
like
and
there
then-
was one part where like the tank just like sort of like pops around off in their general direction, and I was like, why? Why? They're unarmed. Like, why? Why are they just
Why?
shooting? Why?
I know.
Well, and then, I mean, they follow the roses to get to this safe house.
Mhm.
And as they're there and they're all reunited, Juan, Adela, and Dylan and
But not
Cassidy,
TT.
but not TT. Because Harper's now got to find her another love interest.
Wah, wah,
Yeah.
wah, wah, wah.
But they as they're watching the TVs, it's announced, yeah, the new founding fathers have lost control of El Paso, and congratulations, you made it to a safe house. It's no longer safe. Whoopee! It's like,
Oh, and then Mexico, when they see what's happening, closes the border.
yeah.
Again,
Yeah.
James DeMonico, you're defeating your own propaganda. So, and
Just
so
a
that's
little
where,
bit.
and that's where we run into our Native American characters that we mentioned earlier. What was his name?
Thiago.
𝗟𝗲𝗄, who we had seen on television earlier as an anti-purge protester. He's kind of like the Dante or the Carmelo
Yeah.
of this movie, and he offers to lead them to a non-official crossing because it's on Native American land that only members of his tribe are legally allowed to be on, and they can go between Mexico and the United States because they're not really citizens of either. They're just a Native American tribe. And so he offers to lead them there. And then you've got Alpha and the big baddie coming after them. And then they get to the thing, and then there's an all-out battle to get everybody across the border.
Yeah, and it also had one of those scenes, like Brent said, that stretched on forever. The scene where the good guys are all trapped inside the barn, and I realized what DeMonica was trying to do is to build up the tension, but that just went on, and it's like, oh, for the love of God, will you attack the damn barn and let's just get to it?
Yeah.
You know.
And then you have the Native Americans shooting people with bows and arrows, which I thought was pretty damn cool. But it was kind of cliche.
Oh yeah. And another mark of a good Demonico film is the sense of irony, because when Dylan was like giving Juan a lot of grief very early on in the movie, and he said, "Yeah, I heard that you let your lariat lay on the ground." Well, in that scene at the crossing on the reservation,
Mhm.
one of the things they're pulling out of this box of tools, aside from bows and arrows, are lariats. And he hands one to Dylan, and Dylan kind of looks at it and looks at him like, yeah. And you flash back to that very early on in the movie, and you're like, mm-hmm, yeah, you made your point.
But they put the women, they put Cassidy and Harper on this it was some sort of like refrigerator door or something, and they
Yeah.
actually sled down the hill and across the border. I'm like, that's fun.
Yeah, that's kind of cool.
And then there's baby. It's like, oh, new baby.
Oh,
It's like, and then I was like thinking about it. I was like, so
anchor baby.
I was like reverse anchor, like is this baby like a Mexican citizen now? Like, how does he feel about
Yeah,
that?
but
What is the position of the Mexican government in a situation like that? Does it have dual citizenship? I mean,
I'll have to look. I have to look it up. But yeah, so basically they fight off all the big baddies. They get across the border, and Cassidy goes into labor and has the baby, little girl, in the refugee camp in Mexico.
yeah, and we see our hero standing on top of a hill, looking down over uh, the encampment that's there. And as with a typical Demonico film, you see a picture of the globe, and lights are going up and down and going out, and you hear the news broadcasters. And let me ask you guys this question, because I never quite figured this out. What started the forever purge? Did they just finally reach the point where everybody just snapped after all
Yeah.
these years, or was there something else that finally put it, or something deliberate that put it into motion? Because I
From
can
what
never
I
quite
got,
figure that part of it out.
from what I got out of it, I think the people that were doing the forever purge were disgusted that the new founding fathers had not, like, I don't think the purge had done what it was doing and corrected a lot of the, supposedly corrected a lot of the ills of society, and they were upset and just decided, okay, well, if one night a year is not doing it, we'll just make it the entire time until we fix everything. And then at the end, where you see a map of the United States and the world, the United States looks like it's on fire, and then you hear the news reporters saying that both Canada and Mexico have closed the borders, that the NFFA has lost complete control of the country, and the forever purgers are running amok, but there are pockets of anti-purge resistance building up. So basically, America is left in a civil war at the end of this. And then you see lights going on in other countries, which to me indicates that the purge is starting to go across the globe.
Yep.
So
But
do we think they're going to make another one?
I mean, it left it open. This was 2021, and there was the election year was made in 2018, so there was literally 3 years in between this one. So we're only at 3 years now, so they could potentially make another one. I mean, they did make the 2-season TV show in the interim, so another movie would be within the thing. I don't know. They'd have to call it the World Purge or
The
something like that.
global purge.
Or Purge Revolution or something like that. That'd be a good title.
Yeah,
I
that
could
would be
see-
that would be real interesting.
I could see global purge.
Yeah.
And then having it, I wonder how you would do that though. Would you follow like a group through like an international setting? Like, would it be like something like London, or would you put them in a metropolitan or a suburban or a first world or a third world? Like, how would you really convey the idea of the global purge on screen? I feel like it'd be very, very big challenge.
Well, not
It would.
necessarily, because remember one of the other films, there were people who were traveling to the United States for the night of the purge. I mean, I forget which of the films it was, but
It was election year. You had the travel tour, the murder tourism.
Yeah.
And so it's showing you that there's just as psychotic people in other countries as there are in the United States. So now you've got these people that are breaking out in their countries, and maybe you make it kind of an anthology in a way where you have a group of people in America, maybe a group of people in Canada, a group of people in the EU somewhere, a group of people in the UK, a group of people in the Middle East. I mean, you could do it, like that, and
Mhm.
there might even be set up for several movies, like that.
Or you could do as a storyline where someone's trying to get away from the purge in the US. They go to some country where they think this is not going to happen, and then all of a sudden, without realizing it, they've walked into a purge in a foreign country there. So I mean, there's a number of ways to introduce it
Yeah. Yeah, you've
overseas.
got a American running to South America thinking, oh, if I get
Mhm.
to Brazil, I'll be safe. And they get to Brazil and, Rio's on fire, you know.
Yeah, there you go. There you
I don't know.
go.
I feel like the first three were definitely the strongest.
Mhm.
But the second one, I think, definitely being my favorite.
Anarchy.
Yeah, because that was the
Yeah.
first one where they introduced what's his name? The Punisher.
Oh, Leo Barnes.
Yeah,
Frank Grillo. Yeah.
Frank Grillo, right. Yeah, no, I loved him in that one, and then also in what was this next one? So it was
Election Year.
Election Year. Yeah, he was good in that one.
Yeah.
Election Year is my favorite, followed by the first Purge. There's just something about that first Purge that I really liked. Um, Very gritty. This one is my least favorite. I even rank this one under the television show, which is excellent. We won't review that here because I'm not going to force you guys to watch 2 seasons of a television show. But it is on Hulu. It's was on USA Network. I highly recommend it. And I think this one suffered from the story was good, but I think this one suffered from direction. I think if DeMonico had directed this one himself or
Yeah.
co-directed it, I think it would have been a lot better.
More of his touches would have been on it as opposed to someone doing what they think DeMonico would have done and realizing after it, not so much.
Yeah.
Right. Like,
Yeah.
why are you going to imitate
Really?
the guy and make an inferior product when you could just have the guy do it? And really, it was like, his own choice. Like, he wanted to do that because he felt that, there needed to be a Mexican to talk about the Mexicans, appropriately. When really, he probably could have
Ever
just.
heard of a consultant?
Right.
Just like bring that same guy on, not to direct, but to help you tweak the dialogue or tweak the action. But you still do it
Yes.
because this is your movie. You've made 3 great movies, and he was the showrunner on the TV series too. I mean,
And
and
I think
those were excellent. So,
Mhm.
you know,
also, like, my major complaint is that it's just so disparate from the reality that we inhabit. Like, most Mexicans coming illegally over the border. Well, first of all, a lot of them aren't even coming from Mexico anymore. Like,
Yeah.
this is like a huge part of the problem. Like, they're coming from 170 countries around the world, including 40,000 from China in the last year. Like, so there's not even like the Mexican illegal coming from Mexico isn't
give
really
me the good old fashioned Mexican illegal. It's
right.
everything else I'm worried about. I'm not worried about Mexicans. I'm worried about everything else.
Yeah, the Chinese, the Sudanese,
The
the
Russians, the
Hondurans, El
Russians,
Salvadorians, I
yeah,
read about a guy who was in a gang, the 18th Street Gang, who they picked up trying to cross into the United States from Canada. Like, he tried to come
yeah,
in over, they got him, and he's going to
yeah.
be going back to serve time in Honduras or El Salvador. I can't remember which one.
Yeah, I think Brent's right. I mean, I think that the director and DeMonico were trying to have a discussion on race, and as opposed to doing it with cleverness and honesty, it comes off very ham-handed and schlocky. It's
Yeah.
almost like a bad parody. And you
The
just sit there
yeah.
and go, okay, you got all the stereotypes, you got everything else, and it's just not an. I agree with Brent. It's just not an honest discussion about race relations in America and even immigration in America.
No. The TV series and the other 4 movies were about class,
Yeah.
regardless of the race of the person. It was about class.
Hmm.
Then suddenly we're going to pivot and make it purely on race. It
Hmm.
doesn't compute.
Yeah.
The one
No,
discussion we got about class is when the ranch hands tried to take over the ranch. That's the only thing we got about class divide. Everything else was race, 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 race.
Yeah. And it's not, it was well intentioned, but not done or not executed very well. It's probably the best way I can say it.
I think it would be more interesting if they showed like the experience of you've got the poor, undocumented immigrant, and then you've got, let's say, a rich family from Mexico that just moves over here, that comes through the legal immigration system and moves over here, and you show the differences between those two classes. I think that would have been a much more interesting take.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that.
But no, white man bad, Tracy.
Yeah, white man bad.
White man bad.
And even in the previous films, when the films do touch on the question of race, consistently, the white people are bad. They're the ones that want to kill you. They're the ones that want to purge you. It's the African American community and the Mexicans and the women and everybody else, the downtrodden minorities that, you know, are trying to survive this thing, and they come out of this the hero. It's like, oh, come on, guys, really?
But there are poor whites dying too. There are poor whites dying too.
Yeah.
It's just so much fiction. I mean, just like, you know, take a look at the news. Like, look at the rates of, you know, shootings happening in Chicago. Like, look at, like, you know, read about the consequences of illegal immigration on American families. You know, there's multiple small children that have been killed by drunk drivers in the last 5 years. There have been young women who have been assaulted. Like, enough is enough. Like, fentanyl coming over the border. Like, the fentanyl alone coming over the border, because the cartels have basically operational control of the border, is an epidemic. You know, hundreds of thousands of people are dying every year. And it's just like, you know, where's
the fentanyl is coming from China. It's going from China to South America, up through Central America, to Mexico, and into our country. That's exactly where it's coming from.
They're making money on it too, which is disgusting.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And did you see the report? This is totally off the subject, but I see that New York and Massachusetts the governors have now asked private citizens if they have room to open up their homes to migrants.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, what? And there was this news report, local, like Boston channel I watch, where this older white lady, I say she's a little bit older than me, had opened up, obviously well off, had opened up her spare room in her townhouse to a Haitian couple and their young baby. And I thought that was I think she, pure in spirit, I think she literally wanted to help. But part of it was, during the interview, she said she felt like she had a private chef and house cleaner, because the female Haitian was cleaning and cooking for her. And then they showed her cleaning and cooking. And I'm just like, really? Really? Can I just say it out loud? You bring the poor colored immigrant into your home and basically make her a house servant. Can you see where this exploitation, how this system is going to exploit people? There's going to be people that get raped, robbed, murdered by criminals that they're housing. And on the other side, you're going to have somebody that owns a construction company that is willing to go out and put these people in one of his warehouses and get purchase work documents from them, and he's got an unpaid labor force.
Right.
Do you see how this is going? Is this very exploitative?
Yeah. Yeah. And they don't realize when that lady, and I think you're right, when she said, yeah, I feel like I've hit the jackpot. I've got a cook and a cleaning person in my house. I'm like, do you not realize how racist you sound right now? Seriously?
And I'm willing to bet the husband's cutting her grass.
Probably. He's doing the gardening. Probably.
Yeah, and everybody, I'm not trying to be like crass or cruel, but it just came off as like bad comedy during the interview. It just came off as bad comedy. I'm like, we're reverting way back, y'all.
Yeah. And Brent, I think you've been talking about this now for a while on Twitter. Correct me if I'm wrong, but these folks in the North, like, for example, this lady in Boston, who is letting this cup. Are they not being paid by NGOs or being subsidized by their state governments to take these folks in, or did I not read that correctly, or am I thinking of something else?
No, they probably are paying them. Like a lot of it, that comes with compensation, and the money comes right out of the taxpayer, laundered through an NGO because they apply for grants and then they get the grants. And this is the other thing that really needs to get reformed is like, why are we like paying these NGOs to just like relocate illegals in our country? Like, I don't grok like where this is like money just coming.
Yeah.
Like, where's it coming from? Like,
Yep.
it's just kind of cuckoo bananas town, especially while considering we're running like what $1 trillion deficit, couple $1 trillion.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Cuckoo bananas. It just really feels like they're trying to collapse the currency and bring in some sort of like digital one, but who knows?
But anyway, overall grade for the Forever Purge, I'm gonna give it a B, solid B. Brentley, what do you think?
Too kind, C-. Too long. A lot of it needed to be left on the editing room floor. Cliche white man bad trope. The whole like border reverse situation. Americans want to get into Mexico now. Like, come on. Like, I don't know. I really didn't like this one. Again, probably my least favorite of the whole series.
Yeah, definitely my least favorite.
And like, I really didn't like how they got away from, like you said, the class thing. Like, it was always about like, rich versus poor, and how like, the original idea of the purge was to get rid of like the underclasses, the undesirables, and then all of a sudden it just became about race and minorities. And it's like, guys, it's like not like, have you watched the past 4 movies? Like, hello.
And 2 seasons of a TV show.
Exactly.
The TV show is excellent. It's about class.
Yep.
People of all races, religions.
Yep.
Yeah, Brian, what's your grade?
I'm going to go in the middle. I'm going to give it a C+, but I really ought to just give it a C, to be perfectly honest. But I'll split the baby here and call it a C+. I mean, there were parts of it that were weak. I mean, it's still a DeMonaco film without him directing it. But I'm like you guys. I think the focus on the question of race as the cause of the purge takes away from the power of the previous films and the TV series. It's like, guys, if you'd have just kept it on the question of class and did the twist that you did, you still could have made this a really good film in this series. But when you put it purely on the question of race, you just open the door to a lot of ham-handed schlockiness, and it showed up.
I feel like they could have done, you could do a based border page for Purge movie. Like you could show the cartels, you could show the human trafficking, you should show the fentanyl, and then work that into the plot somehow. Like, you could do all that, but that's not really what this guy did.
Make one of the characters a cartel person that gets caught up in the purge, and he's,
or somehow work in, elements from Juan and Adela's past that are now in the United States, trying to find them as part of the purge. And the reality is, it's just revenge killings for what they used to do to the cartels down in Mexico.
Yeah,
you could have done that.
Yeah, absolutely. And they should have kept Darius in the movie.
Yeah,
him just piecing out, 15 minutes in. I'm like, why didn't they like take him to get his family and then take him to Mexico with them? Then we could have introduced a couple more kick-ass characters maybe in his family. So
there you go. Yeah,
I agree with Brentley. It's like black man exits, and then there's no more black characters. I'm like,
it just seemed weird. He was just like, I'm gonna get my family now, peace, and it was gone. It's like, why? Like,
I don't even think he had a gun. He just took off.
Well, I mean, she gave him a gun, but I mean, to me, I'm like you. His character should have stayed around. But I mean, if when he said, "Okay, I'm out of here, peace out," and then somebody just shot him dead right where he was, okay, I wouldn't have liked that, but I would have accepted the finality of it. This character is no longer here, and we know what happened to him. Whereas, peace out, I'm out of here, and it's like, What happened to
Makes
the
me
guy?
wonder if there was more with him and they just didn't. It was on the cutting room floor. Maybe there's a unedited version out there that
Could
keeps him
be.
in it a little bit more, but still, it was just strange,
Yep.
you know.
Could
And
be.
being that there have been some really strong black characters in every single other Purge installment, for them just to piece
Mm,
out the one, just bye. I'm
yeah.
like, what's that
Yeah.
for representation?
Like they could even, I mean, if they were gonna do that, they could have just given him a really cool death where he saves, one of the protagonists. That would have been fine.
Exactly. Let him go out like Dante and Electioneer. I mean,
Right.
they shot the hell out of him, but he still rammed his car into the bad guys and killed most of them.
Right. Exactly. Like give him like a moment, and it's just like, no, bye. Like,
Yeah.
okay. It just felt like a
Yeah.
waste.
Yeah. And then at the end with the Native Americans, oh, here's some Native Americans and they shoot bows and arrows. I'm
Yes,
like,
we've
how
been in
much more stereotypical could you get? That's a little bit
we,
insulting.
yeah, the one line about we've been fighting this struggle for 500 years. I'm like, oh, for the love of God, please. Like, Jesus.
And they literally shot bows and arrows.
Yeah.
Right. Like, could you be any more cliche? Like it just felt, so
Cowboys
written
and
by a white
Indians.
dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, you want to put some feathers in your hair? I mean, some war paint. I mean, something like that.
It's a little bit insulting. A little bit insulting.
Just a little bit.
Insulting to black people, insulting to white people, and insulting to Native Americans. And I think a little bit insulting to Mexicans if you really look
Yeah.
at some of the.
They didn't even let the black guy sit in the back of the semi. I mean, at least he could have identified with those who come before him, for heaven's sake. I mean, jives.
But anyway, everyone, Forever Purge. If you've watched the rest of the Purge stuff, you got to finish it out. Go ahead and watch it. It is more of a painful schlock than the others, but they tried.
Yeah.
And with that being said, everyone, Brentley, Brian, thank you so much for joining me. And everyone, we'll be back soon. We are not ending this Friends on Film series anytime soon. We'll be back with another film really soon. And until next time, keep doing.